the only problem we have with this is, or I want to put the question to you three, is whether you think this is a realistic, a positive movement, a positive change for the eco-fashion movement, or if it's just making sustainability another fashion trend and a fad that will be done away with next season. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's great. I think it's awesome that you can buy an organic singlet for $15. I think that's very accessible. I also think it's incredibly supportive that a big corporation like Sportsgirl that can actually increase the demand for organic cotton and actually support that industry, and therefore make it easier for smaller businesses to access the material. I think it's great that they're getting in and creating demand for it and reaching probably an audience of what are quite young, quite wasteful consumers. So I think that's a really good move. I think it's very positive.
The question is, of course, is it just going to be kind of a throwaway thing that people do once? Or is it really going to make a lasting impact on the kinds of people who just go, like, you know, I mean, obviously it's just a basic thing, but it's a good start, I think. For example, I mean, we might one day see all fashion stores having organic cotton singlets and hopefully other items of clothing as well.
Yeah, they are popping up. I know Gorman is a lovely local label that have just started doing an organic cotton range, and I know that designer Lisa Gorman is getting more inspired to. She's going to be looking into some more denim and increasing her focus in that sustainable direction. But look, I think what this does with its conspicuous bag and marketing and it being Sportsgirl and then making a campaign out of it is it's acknowledging that I think as consumers we're in our information gathering stage, we're just learning about these things. So I think it's really important that it's conspicuous, and obviously they'll benefit from that from a marketing perspective because it is an issue that's growing, has a groundswell of interest. But it's kind of going to feed around, like they're going to be talking about it and increasing the exposure of it. People are interested in it. I think it's going to be it's helping the groundswell of conversations of this nature.
What is your opinion on the prevalence of the eco-fashion movement in Melbourne, though? Because I've just been doing a bit of research and I found there was a whole bunch of different organisations that have popped up overseas, and it seems to be a big thing, especially in like the UK, US, and especially I found a number of things in Sweden, and they actually have guidelines in Sweden for eco-fashion manufacturing, and they actually need like certificates from the manufacturer to say it's ecological, and clothing must be produced in good conditions where the workers get reasonable salaries. And they actually had a Fair Made exhibition in Feb this year, which had I read a quote where they've said that eco-fashion is now kind of on the same level in Sweden as organic food and recycling and stuff, and so there's a whole exhibition just for sustainable clothing. Do you think that kind of thing could ever happen in Melbourne or Australia, like reach that kind of prominence?
Oh, absolutely. I think that if you look at the ratios of our population to theirs, I think you'll find there's quite a lot of activity going on locally. But it is interesting, I think, especially in European nations, there's a lot of governmental support from the regulatory side. I think there's a lot of, I know in Germany there's a lot of encouragement and financial support and in some cases quite strict regulations about them having to take responsibility for the whole life cycle of what they produce. Whereas over here, we have nothing. We have absolutely nothing. It just makes some more money, please. It'll make us look good. That's pretty much the approach we have there. So I think that's one of the main motivations that would get people overseas working harder and faster in this issue than we are locally. But I think if you scratch the surface, you'll find there's quite a lot of smaller operations as well. Like Felicity here's a jeweller who makes things out of old found objects, bits of clocks and so on. And I think there's quite a lot of little boutiques and little studios, like A Name Is a Label do. I think 50% of their production is drawing upon reclaimed materials, and certainly we have the organic stuff happening in the new garment production area.
Because I think a big thing when people think of like sustainable eco-fashion, they've always thought of kind of like the op shop thing, and for example the things like clothing swaps, which are obviously like an incredibly good thing, but when you come down to it, you can just be recycling the same kind of unenvironmentally friendly things again and again, and obviously that's a good thing because you wouldn't want to just use all that water growing that cotton and then throw it away. But I think we can truly call ourselves like eco-fashionistas when we're wearing clothes that have been certified from the growing process to the spinning process or whatever they do to make
And then they're
cotton.
swapping them.
Cotton, yeah, and I think only then will the cycle be complete, truly.
Well, one of the things I find really interesting about this sort of green is the new black campaign is that it sort of acknowledges the the way that the fashion sort of changes, and I mean, it's sort of funny, like what's going to be the next new black? I mean, is green not going to be in for very long? Like that's what I sort of like. It makes me sort
It's
of
funny that expression is becoming quite prominent. I've seen it around a bit.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, in the 80s, there was a whole lot of greenwash in product design, in fashion design, and it really was very tokenistic. But I think what you have now is designers in general are responding to, well, if they're good designers, they're responding to what's going on in society and what's needed and what's culturally and socially relevant. And so this, climate change is part of the mainstream consciousness now. We are all responding to it. It's very real, it's very present, and so therefore I think what we have is a shift. We're not having a tokenistic movement. I think it's much as there's definite differences in motivations. I think you're right to be sceptical. I think of the motivations of especially big scary corporations, but whatever's motivating them, if you're looking at the action, I think we definitely have a bit of a shift on our hands. I hope.
Okay, well thank you Linden, Kate and Felicity for today's discussion. Don't forget to go to our MySpace page, myspace.com/Greenlight907.